In this video, I will be showing you guys how to create piano beats for Gunna. I know that he is very popular for his guitar beats and songs, but he actually has a lot of melodic and fire-sounding piano songs as well. So that is what we will be covering in today's video. I will be making the melody and everything from scratch, so make sure you stay to the end of the video to see everything, because I will try to share some super nice sauce and also some super fire VSTs. So let's not waste any more time, let's just jump straight in. Alright, so we are now here in FL Studio 21, as you guys can see. The first thing I want to do is, since we are making these melodic piano beats, I actually want to turn up the BPM a little bit. So I think something like 165 is going to be perfect. Now for the VST we're going to be using, it's actually going to be Omnisphere. As you might have seen, I have actually been using Omnisphere a lot more recently, and that is because I hadn't actually been using it for a while. So I'm kind of back into it. We're just going to go over to the keyboard section over here, and we obviously have all of these LA Custom C7 pianos. In this case, I'm just going to go with this softest piano over here, so we can kind of get that soft sound out of our piano. So now that we have the piano instrument, we obviously want to open up the piano roll, and we need to pick a scale. So for this one, I think I'm actually going to go for something like E minor. That's pretty much the perfect key we're going to go for, and then we can even pitch it down a little bit if we feel like the pitch is too high. So since we are working in the E minor scale, let's simply just start off with the E minor chord. So we're just putting it on the E note right here. I'm going to extend it out 2 bars, and we obviously want to skip the first highlighted note over here and just put 1 note on the G5. Again, skip this one and just put a simple note on the B5 right there. So to make this a little bit more interesting, I just want to invert this middle note by pitching it up 1 octave, and I think we can actually pitch the whole chord down 1 octave as well. Now that we have this, we just want to build off of this chord progression. So what we're going to do is just copy this whole thing over and make sure to pitch it down by 4 semitones and just adjust this middle or top note over here so it's actually in key. We're going to pitch it up by 1 semitone, so it's the normal chord right there, but we're going to leave it up and shorten it to 1 bar. Then we can copy this over and just pitch it up by 2 semitones. Now we have this smooth chord progression right here. Now it's a pretty cool sounding chord progression, but we definitely need to add some more movement on these top notes over here, just so it's a little bit more pleasant to listen to. So as most of you guys know, if you are using these half steps over here, you are kind of going to get more tension, a little bit more of that darker sound. In this case, we actually don't want too much of that tension, so I'm going to try to just use these notes that don't really have a semitone right next to them. So kind of going to try to avoid using 2 notes right next to each other. It's going to be more of these ones that has a little bit of a space in between them. So then we can just start by putting down a note right here, and I'm kind of going to go in a little bit of a downwards pattern. So let's just have this note, this one, and then we can kind of land this one where the chord lands, but obviously we want to make sure we move it slightly off grid so it is a bit more realistic. Alright, that's pretty smooth. Let's maybe go down once again, and then we can kind of go up over here. Something like this. Yeah, that's fire. Let's copy that over and build off of this second part. Right, so we just added some more notes over here. Right, so even though we use that soft piano preset, I still feel like we can actually make it a bit softer, just so it's less harsh. So I'm quickly just going to add a few effects to just kind of filter out the sound a little bit. Firstly, we're obviously going to add that EQ. Right, so these mids right here are pretty harsh. Then we also just have some reverb. Can also add a little bit of RC20, get more of that vintage feel, but I'm gonna turn down the distortion so it's not too harsh. Like I said, we're trying to make it a bit more softer. We can widen out the sound with this imager as well, just so it spreads a bit more in the mix. The next thing we're going to add is actually going to be some vocals in the background. I'm going to treat them more like a pad, so it's not going to be too noticeable, but they are pretty much essential if you're trying to make these piano beats for Gunna. So when it comes to the vocals, I'm actually just going to open up the Distant Voices bank in Arcade, look through a couple of the banks, see if we can find something nice, and then I'm just lay it down. Alright, so I did find this phrase right here. I like how it sounds, but I feel like it's a bit short. So what I'm actually going to do is just press the note over here. And as you guys can see, you're actually going to get the full vocal phrase. So instead of just having this small section right there on the end, we're actually going to extend this all the way to the left and see if we can use the whole thing. Yeah, this might work. Like I said, I wanted to use the vocal more as a pad, so I'm gonna have to add some effects to really make sure it blends in nicely with the melody. So to do that, I'm just gonna be using the magnitude transition 1 preset in RC20 just to filter out the whole sound. Then I'm also gonna add an EQ, just cutting out the high frequencies over here. And lastly, I'm just gonna be using this pancake too to make sure it pans from left to right. I'm actually gonna cut this up, pitch it down. Just so it's a bit different. I'm actually going to go over to the 5th insert and just add a quick sound shifter and try to pitch down the whole sample a little bit to see how that sounds. It's a bit deeper now. Let's go in with this Scarby bass for the low end. Just going to be putting it on the root notes right here. It's kind of fire. Right, so I did find this quick phrase over here. It's more like an accent, so I think I'm just gonna have this in the background. And I'm gonna try to add a proper counter melody later on. Maybe like a guitar we can have on top. Right, so I found this guitar phrase as well. I think we can kind of use this. Has that typical Gunna type of sound to it. Fits with our chord progression as well. Alright, so I definitely feel like we can have that guitar for the intro, but I don't know if it's gonna fit that well later on in the beat. So I'm gonna try to find a different counter melody that we can use when we don't have the guitar playing. Alright, so for the counter melody, since we already used the phrase for the guitar, I'm actually gonna try to make the counter melody myself, since I think I have a cool sounding melody in my head. So all I'm gonna do is just open up Mellotron 5, see if I can find a nice sounding sound that's actually gonna complement the melody nicely. Right, so I had this flute pattern in my head and it sounds like this. I think we can just mess around with this top note over here. Now the last thing I'm going to do to the melody is actually just open up Hooked in Arcade yet again, but this time we're just going to add a couple one shots of these vocals just so we can have them on the start and maybe towards the end of the sample. Right, so now that we have the sample finished, let's quickly add some drums. As for all the drum sounds I'm using, they are of course coming from the Mirage multi-kit, so if you guys like any of the drum sounds you hear in this video, you can obviously check out the kit. It is on my website, which is BBMarko.com, or you guys can just click the first link down below. Okay, so we're just starting with this simple clap pattern, just to get the bounce going. I'm gonna go for a typical Gunna type of bounce. Right now for the hi-hat pattern, I'm actually going to go over to the Euphoria bundle kit. This time I'm just going to go over to the MIDI section and look through a couple of the hi-hat MIDIs. I'm looking for something that has a little bit of space in between the hits. Yeah, so something like this is going to be perfect. Has lots of space. We can add lots of perks on this one as well. Let's run with the velocity as well. That's perfect. So with the drums for these Gunna beats, you definitely want to keep the pattern simple but still keep them bouncy. Alright, so now that we have the whole beat finished, I'm quickly just going to arrange the whole thing and then we'll take a final listen. So here we have the full thing. 16 bar intro for this one, so it's a bit longer than usual.
Shut up, Marko! Marko! Marko!
Teasing the drums right here in the first section. You can kind of have some sort of pre-hook right here. Then it drops. Flute comes in right there. Second part with the vocals. Slow it a bit down. flute. Bridge right here. Back with that guitar in the background. Then it drops.